have a name tag for you as well. You should work out with all the people there. It's really tight, but it will work. So, and then we put Eva and so Yeah, leave it now, but I'll let you know. Okay. Was ist du hier? Nee, in der Mitte. Wer ist jetzt? Dann setze ich Clemens hier rüber, ja? Okay.
Darf ich deinen Namen nicht auf die Liste schreiben?
Wenn Herr Ponder noch kommt.
Dann drehen wir ihn um und dann reicht er das.
Ja, okay. Dann macht das bitte. Bitte. Danke.
Aber nicht so schlimm. Ich muss das jetzt hier I can step back so you can step in.
Okay.
Thank you. Right.
So Michael, your right left or off?
I think we
Good morning, everybody. We will wait for 5 more minutes because the coffee break started late, so thank you for your patience. Okay, good morning, everybody. We are now going to start the workshop Intelligent Risk Management in a Mobile Online Environment, and I'm very glad to be the moderator of this session, which was organized jointly by Google. The company is represented by Marco Pancini here on the panel, who will speak afterwards to you, and by the German Safer Internet Awareness Center called ClickSafe in the Safer Internet program of the European Commission, and by the organization I represent myself, which is the newly founded German Center for Child Protection on the Internet called eKids. We've been doing some research at the German Center on children and youth usage of mobile devices within the last month. And that's why we have put the focus on the question, how can parents take their responsibility in that fastly moving environment where children use their mobile devices, their smartphones, but also tablets and laptops, anywhere and at any time of the day. And on the other hand, how can we take care of the rights of the children like they are laid down in the UN Charter of the Rights of the Child? So they have the right to privacy, they have the right to choose their own media for information access. And how can we balance between these two areas? We will do this in a so-called appreciative inquiry session. That means, firstly, we will have very short and brief statements from our panelists, and then afterwards we will go on to ask you, as the audience, to go through a procedure of 4 questions where we appreciate what is really in digital media for the society. So I will introduce the panelists when they are up to speak, and I will start on my left side with Claudia Lampert. She's a researcher at the Hans Bredow Institute, well known for the work she's been doing for the EU Kids Online Studies, and she will report about recent findings on children's mobile usage. So, please, Claudia.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for the introduction and for the invitation as well. In the next 5 minutes, I want to draw your attention to some trends regarding children's mobile use and some challenges for both children and parents. And fortunately, with the EU Kids Online survey from 2010 and the Net Children Go Mobile project from 2013 and 14, we have current international and comparable findings for the 9 to 16-year-old children in Europe. I would like to scratch the status quo of children and youth mobile internet use in 5 points. First, we can state that due to the user-friendly devices with touch screens, children are becoming more familiar with digital media at an increasingly early age, and consequently the age of online use is also dropping. In the EU Kids Online survey of 2010, the average age was 9 years, and in the Net Children Go Mobile study from 2013 and 14, the average age is 8.5. This is important because the findings also indicate that younger children, and particularly younger girls, are less familiar and also less able to activate functions on the smartphone to control their online use and secure their privacy. For example, they are not able to block push notifications from different apps or to block pop-ups which promote content or services they have to pay for, or to deactivate localization services and things like this. Second, internet use increasingly takes place out of the sight of the parents. Even if most children use the internet via Wi-Fi at home, parents hardly notice what their children are doing online. On the one hand, the screen of the smartphone is too small to see clearly what's going on. And on the other hand, around about 1/3 of the adolescents prefer to use the smartphone in their own bedroom. Additionally, the opportunity to use the internet all times. 86% of the 9 to 16-year-olds have a profile on a social network like Facebook, and 33% have a profile on a media sharing platform like YouTube or Instagram. The findings also indicate that more smartphone and tablet users have a profile on a social network compared to the intent, for example, pro-anorexia, hate content, drug topics, suicide are the most relevant risks. All risks, except of bullying others, increase not only with age, but also among smartphone and tablet users. The findings also indicate that children who use the internet via mobile devices experience more things online that bother them compared to others. And the final point comes back to parental restrictions are still the least favorite mediation. The awareness regarding potential risks seemed to have successfully increased among parents, which builds a good background for the discussion, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for this insight. I just would like to have one final question to you. How do you differentiate between active mediation and, I don't remember what you said, the other thing was?
You mean active mediation on safety and
yes.
on internet use?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, the first one is the mediation on internet safety, so parents tell their children what they shouldn't do online, while the other thing includes advices how to use, for example, the internet creatively, or to show them good websites or things like this. So the first one is more focused on the safety.
So there might be some awareness of safety risks by the parents.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I will then hand over to Julia Morenetz. She's working on the project Together Against Cybercrime, and she will tell us something about what they discovered as the most relevant threats to children's and youth safety. And we will also have, I think, some remote input from Emilia Gova and Carla Ricciardello, who are both working as strategy and policy advisors at the ITU on the International Multilateral Partnership Against Cyber Threats. So, Julia, would you take over first, please?
Good morning. Good morning, and first of all, thank you so much, Jutta, for this introduction. I'm very happy to be here today, and thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel. My name is Julia Morenetz, and I actually represent and lead the civil society organization TEC, Together Against Cybercrime International. We are based in France and operate mainly in Europe. We do work on cybercrime, cybersecurity, and mainly on cybersecurity strategies and child online protection. When I speak about child online protection, we have in this area a very particular focus on vulnerable children. When I speak about vulnerable children, I mean, and I take the definition of WSIS process of Tunis agenda, so mainly children with social problems or from families with low social income, of course children with disabilities, migrants, and etc. So the definition, you can find it in the Tunis agenda. I think why I was invited to be here is because we developed together with the University of Strasbourg a research on the use of ICTs by vulnerable children and others and other children. And it's a research we started 3 years ago, and this year we developed the actually online form to get the data. And what is very interesting concerning our subject, it's that the use of mobile internet by all children, vulnerable or not vulnerable, is growing, of course, and I can give the percentage is 84% of all children of the age of 17, they use the mobile internet. At least in France, it was the research based on different regions in France. Now, I was asked, we have more detailed data, of course, available. It was a publication made in English, so I would be happy to make it available for you, for all participants and stakeholders. Now, I was asked to give the information concerning the thefts online and the dangers that they face. And I have to say that we have identified the identity theft and the bullying being one of the important dangers that they face. And of course, but it was also the growing demand of unknown people to become friends with the kids via social media, using, for example, Facebook and other social media and applications. Now, it is very interesting what I would like to underline, the difference between the real dangers, because when I speak about these dangers, it's the real dangers that these children from our pool that they faced. Now we made a difference between the feeling that the children have, and this is very interesting because the feeling of dangers of the pool of children, of children from our pool, is that they feel unsafe online concerning identity theft and personal data, and this is very important. And I would not speak about the solutions and what should be done now, but I think we will raise these questions later on. And as I might leave a little bit earlier, what I would like to say is when we speak about the need of child online protection strategies at national level, we definitely need, I think, to include the data protection and privacy issues in it, because what we've seen already, the feeling of these children about the privacy issues is growing and very important. So I will be happy to discuss later on, and this is my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, for that findings from your recent research. We now have the chance to directly mirror that to the perspective of 2 young people coming from the German youth panel from ClickSafe. And to my right is sitting Leonard Nickel, and then we have Luca Troncone. Both are students at German high school, I think in the next to last year, so you have nearly 1 year to go to take your final exams. And I would like to invite you to just tell us whether, I think Julia mentioned identity theft, bullying, and also grooming as the threats that they considered at the study, but that the children are most concerned about identity theft, so losing your private data. And maybe you could give us your perspective on these points. Thank you.
At first, thank you for the short introduction and our chance to speak here at the workshop. I think we should start with a general look at the internet. It's an important part for us in the modern age, and especially for younger generations, because we shouldn't forget the positive aspects of the internet, that you can communicate with everybody around the globe the whole day, and the internet as an endless source of information. And you have some services who are making your daily life quite comfortable, and we shouldn't forget that, and it's a fixed part in our daily life. And especially for these younger generations, there are some problems and threats they can't really see when they use the internet, and that's what we are now discussing. These negative aspects are, for example, online social networks where people are bullying each other, and so they are going into an online identity and losing the personal contact to each other.
I think younger generations have the big problem that they are decreasing the time they spend with face-to-face interactions. So they're just sitting in the bus next to each other, but nobody is talking anymore. Everybody's just looking at this little smartphone. And I think this is a huge problem, because when you write with somebody with your mobile phone, you don't notice his emotions, what you're writing. And I think this is one of the main reasons why cybermobbing is such a big problem in our daily life.
Yeah, and this cybermobbing is a point where experts and parents should give a safety background for the children and the youth, because the victims of this cyberbullying aren't able to get on with this problem on their own. They need some help, and so other people are needed to defend themselves.
And also, the internet has no limitations for the age. We have no age restriction. That's a huge problem. So people get in touch with inappropriate content that's not good for them, like sexual content or horror films or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's a gap in the limits the youth are creating on their own, and that's the task for maybe the parents and teachers at school, where they should try to help them and find a good arrangement between trusting the children and protect them from these inappropriate contents and maybe cyberbullying or something, or problems like these. And very important for that is a good relationship between the parents and the children, that the children can say, oh, I have a problem, can you help me? If the parents are able to help them, it's good, or they know experts where they can find or get information how to get on with this problem or treat.
I think parenting is really important for children to get older in a safe environment. But people, especially young people, need their own time to find their own limits. They need free time without limits to find their own limits. But I think people like maybe 2 years younger than us, 17 now, like they're 15, they can make their own limitations about how much time they spend in the internet and what contents they are watching. But there are still some gaps in this framework they're making, and this is the role of the parents to fulfill these gaps. And I think the most important thing is between a relationship between the parents and the children is trust. So you can talk about everything, what you make in the internet.
Yeah, and maybe this framework, what the parents should create and close for the children, should change with the children growing up. When they are 14 or 15, they should have most of the, they shouldn't have any control by the parents, because they are old enough to get on with the internet problems. Because when you are growing up with these modern technical instruments, you are able to see these problems earlier than the adults are maybe seeing these problems, like cyberbullying. With the growing age, this problem is decreasing, not increasing. And you will find cyberbullying or these online hurt of other people in younger generations than ours, like 8, 9, 10 years. Yeah. And that's what I will now summarize this. For us, the relationship between the children and teachers and parents is the most important part, and this is where the parents should try to begin with saving and securing their children.
Yeah, thank you so much for your perspective. Maybe we just turn to our audience, and I think you said from the age of 15 you would say you can take your own responsibility, that's right? Mm-hmm. So maybe you can raise your hands if you think that 15 is an appropriate age that children should have their own responsibility and the parents should not take care. Who thinks that 15 is a good age? Please raise your hands. Okay, some hands. And the others, do you think the children should be guided till 18 maybe? So who thinks the age should be older? Yeah, some are nodding. Could you take the mic, please? So you try the other one, please.
No.
We need it louder. Better?
Why would the parents responsibility for a child change due to the fact they're in a virtual environment rather than a physical environment? Surely the parents' responsibility for a child is consistent regardless of the environment they're in, be it a virtual world or a physical world. So a parent's responsibility to a child surely is set by the legal obligations required upon them as a parent inside their environment, albeit with degrees of variation of responsibility as the child grows up. Why would that be different in a virtual world? Why are we drawing a distinction here?
I think the reason why we discuss this is because in the real world the parents would know how to take their responsibility, but maybe they are not so much acquainted with the virtual world, so they give some of the responsibility to their children as well. But what do you think in the real world, where is the age border where children can take their own responsibility?
I think that, oh, wow. I think that varies depending on the child, depending on the parent, depending on the legal environment, depending on a whole vast array of variables. I don't think you can put that down to a single arbitrary age, be that 15, be that 18, be that 21, be that 3.
Okay, okay. We have another comment here from the floor. Can we have the mic?
I think there should not be a real difference between real world or virtual world, because the responsibility you have for your children as parents are always the same if they are online or if they are in real life. So the way how you should observe what the children are doing, where you could stand behind them, help them, depends very strong on the way the children are educated, the way the children get help when they are younger, if they are standing by themselves. You have young people who are able to take responsibility for themselves when they are 13, 14, 15, in many, many cases, but not in all. And so you always have to make a difference there too. And that is what we should always think about when we are discussing about the virtual world. Or trying to get parallels to what would I allow my child to do, itself in real life. And if I have a 15 or 16-year-old child, I cannot observe everything what they are doing. That's not realistic. And so it's also the same. I have to prepare them that they are able to see what is dangerous for me, or to make them strong, to see that's not kosher, what's going on there. I go back. And to educate them to be open to talk to people, to friends, or to others if something happens that doesn't make them feel well. So I think that's very important, to prepare them also to this virtual world where many things can come easier to children than in real life sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. Leonard wants to answer directly. I just wanted to skip in and say that's what we mean with the heading Intelligent Risk Management, to adapt it to the age of the child and to have it also in the hands of the parents.
The problem is that many parents don't have the same technical education as the younger generations have. So we can see it in our situation when we are talking to younger children. They sometimes have more technical abilities than we do, and so it's quite difficult to prepare them to be, yeah.
Is it a question of technical knowledge, or is it a question of experience in life, of moral knowledge, of the way you are stable and strong? I think the technical knowledge is not the most important thing, but in general to know what's possible. Not the technical knowledge as such, but the offers that are on the net. And I think you are very right that it's very difficult if you have parents who are not digital natives. But I think that will not be the problem in 5, 10 or 15 years, because they are also grown up with new technologies. I think that's a very big problem now in the times where many parents don't have the experience in these technical matters, and in countries where people in general don't have this high experience with these things. But I think it's a question of education in general, to be careful with special things.
I really appreciate that we are so interactive. I have another comment from the floor from my friend Anne Collier, and then we go back to the panelists. Thank you.
Do I just speak? Just speak and it will start? It's not starting. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much, Leonard and Luca. Hold it directly to the mouth. Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate what you said, that it's so important, the relationship between the child and the teacher or the child and the parent is so central to safety. But I'll ask you something that I asked in a previous workshop. In this world, in all societies, there are children who don't have engaged parents, who don't have it's not even that they don't have a trust relationship, they don't have good parents, or they don't have parents at all. So do you have any thoughts on how these children can get the right education and protection? Don't you think there's some peer mentoring going on already online? Do young people help each other? Is there going to be more of this going forward? Are there trust relationships, peer-to-peer trust relationships?
I think for these situations, it's important that they just find one or two persons who can show them how to get on with the problems and the usage of the internet. It's just they need to know that if they do anything wrong in the internet, they have somebody to talk to say, I did a mistake, can you help me? And if they don't find a solution, they can go to an expert and say, this is my problem. But children with 10 years wouldn't go to an expert on his own, so they need to talk to older people, maybe to older students. That's a possibility too.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for mentioning this point with the peers. As I said, we see in the data that the older children get more support from their peers than from their parents. And in Germany, we have some approaches to use this for special programs to educate peers that they are able to support others more efficiently. And I think perhaps Jutta Kroll agrees that's a very good approach to reach more children, because children and adolescents are likely to hear more of their peers than on what their parents say. So I think it's a good way to reach them.
Okay, thank you. Then we now continue with our panel, and I think the question that also matters is the question of privacy, which is a human right given to all children, regardless of their age. And on the other hand, it's the question whether parents need to respect the right to privacy, and how is the legal situation. Abela Schneer from the Northumbria University, who has a well-known research career regards these questions on children's rights on the internet, and especially on privacy, will elaborate a little bit on this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jutta. Right, you've heard about the risk to children in the online environment, including the mobile environment, from this panel, and also if you've been to the other child protection workshops and panels elsewhere over the last 2 days, and in the coming days you will hear more about it. Also, one of the challenges for restricting, for enhancing child safety online, if you like, is the issue of free speech and privacy. And the debate has surrounded on the right to free speech of adults and right to privacy of adults so far. It's only recently that people have started talking about, no, children have rights too. So what about children's right to privacy, children's right to free speech? Are you restricting that at an unreasonable level by incorporating safety measures or restricting children's access to the internet or certain parts of the internet and certain types of content? So you also must have come across the different conflicting rights in this context in terms of the state's responsibility or a parental duty to ensure the best interests of the child. But people often do not stop to think about the inherent rights of children. Children have rights too, right to privacy, children have rights to the right to free expression. But the question is, to what extent can you restrict those rights? As you know, right to free speech of adults is not unconditional. It's a qualified right. If you look at the European Convention on Human Rights, Article 10, right to free speech, right to free expression, Article 8, right to respect for private life, none of those are unconditional rights. They're qualified. They can be restricted provided that they are within the law or they're reasonable restrictions. And that applies to children too. Now, what constitutes a reasonable restriction on their right is a very subjective thing. Just as an example, if you look at access to pornography of children, a child could not traditionally go into a sex shop and buy porn, right? This is before the internet, and it should not be any different post-internet. But obviously, there are technical issues which makes that restriction less practical in the internet context. But if you look at the reason, if you analyze whether that restriction was reasonable or not, that was not ever based on any credible evidence of harm to children. You'll find a lot of studies which point to harm, but you'll find an equal number of studies which point to a lack of harm or any lack of evidence of harm of accessing adult content. But what there was, for a fact, was a credible risk of harm. And the risk of harm has offered sufficient rationale or sufficient justification for restricting children's access to adult content. So coming back to restricting the right to access certain kinds of information, it was never required, and it's not required to identify an actual credible risk of harm, even if there's an actual actual evidence of harm, even if there is a credible risk of harm that has traditionally, from a purely legal perspective, offered sufficient justification for restricting access to inappropriate content. Now, I talked about the conflicting interests. People talk about rights of children, right to privacy, balanced with the state's responsibility to ensure the best interest of the child, or parents' duty to ensure the child's best interest. I think we need to go beyond that and start thinking about the child's inherent rights itself and see the different rights of the same child and balance it with each other. For example, yes, a child has the right to privacy, but also, on the same token, the same child has the right to a healthy upbringing, a right to grow up and reach their full potential. So if restricting certain rights, which includes right to privacy and right to free expression, can be justified by making sure that that restriction leads to the child being able to grow up and reach their fuller potential, then that restriction would be classed as legally reasonable, in my opinion. So I think that to summarize that, I think it's important that we need to take a step further and start thinking about rights from a child right point of view rather than a right which society or the state confers on children as a privilege. It's a right which exists for the very reason that they're born, that they exist. So it's an inherent, fundamental, basic human right. But that said, it is subject to reasonable restrictions, again, for the best interest of the child. I'll be happy to take any questions at the end of this.
Thank you, Abhilash, for being a child's right advocate at that point. I really appreciate the example you've given, because it leads directly to the question, what can parental controls do? When you talked about restrict to adult content, pornography in the real world, it's just performed by not letting children go to the movies or to the shop where they can buy such stuff. But on the internet it's different. Everything is open and free, and the only tool we consider as maybe having the potential to reduce the access to this content could be parental controls. I'm really happy to have Clemens Gruber here, who is working on the SIP benchmark project, which is run for several years by the European Commission. And they are looking into the effectiveness of such parental control tools, but also into the usability of these tools and how parents will be able to cope with the tool and to set it up correctly to make them work. So we have a short presentation, and I hope that the technician in the background will see my sign. Sorry. Okay, it will work, and maybe you...
Okay, I can start.
Now we have
Yes, now we have the website on the screen. This is the website of SIP Benchmark. As Jutta said, it's a project founded by the European Commission, and we are monitoring parental control tools, technical tools that limits the access to the internet for children, for teens, for kids. And we monitor these tools on a regular basis. At the moment, every 8 months, we have a look at the tools and we test different aspects, as you can see on the next slide.
need to click.
I try to click here. The first thing and the most important thing is the effectiveness. This is the score of underblogging and overblogging, how much good content, how much bad content is blocked or is not blocked. The next point is the security. How easy is it to bypass the filter? In some cases, children are able to use a proxy, use an alternative browser, especially in the mobile tools, and so they can bypass the filter. The next thing is the usability we are monitoring, because it's important. How easy is it to install the tools, to configure the tools and to use the tools? If the tools are not easy to install or to configure, parents can make mistakes, and so the filtering and the monitoring is not working correct. And the last thing is the functionality. You have, of course, the filter, but you have, of course, other functions like time restrictions, like monitoring. And we try to help parents to use the right tool for their children. And as you can see on the slide, you have on the website different sorting opportunities, different browser options, and parents can see and can search for tools for special operation system or for special functionalities. So you have this overview of the tools, but you can also have a so-called tool fish, and there you can see details of the tool, like the operation system, like metadata, language, the available language, or our scores for the different rating categories. So we monitored different tools. We have started with tools for PC and Mac, and then came time by time the mobile devices. And now it is new. We monitor also so-called alternative tools. These are tools that have, on the technical base, a whitelist-only approach, especially for very young children, where you have a walled garden, and you can say, okay, it's safe for the children, but it's also a very limited access to the internet. So let's go to our topic today. Let's go to the mobile devices, and I've got some numbers here. Let's compare the mobile devices as new tools to the old tools, the PC and Mac tools. And you can see the effectiveness is not so different for these two categories, because the engine is in the most cases, or seems to be in the most cases, the same. So both are more or less good or bad. Let's jump to the usability. There you have some better points for the Mac or PC tools because you have a larger screen, and for instance, configuration is much more easy on a screen than on a tablet. Functionality is not so good for the mobile tools. You have, in the most cases, only a basic filter, and you have more features on PC or Mac tools. But the weakest point is the security. If you have a look at the security score, the mobile tools are really bad. You have, in some cases, the opportunity to install simple and easy another browser, and you can access the web. And this is the weakest point at the moment on the mobile tools compared to the PC tools. But if you have a look at the effectiveness, there is also a weak point, because if you see the overblocking and underblocking score, overblocking occurs when the tools block non-harmful content. It is the percentage of dropped good content, and underblocking is the other point, is the percentage of missed bad content. And if you have a look at the tools we have tested in the last cycle, you see that we have an average rate of overblocking 17%. So this means, when we go back to the definition, that 20%, nearly 20% of good content is missed. Or let's go to the underblocking. So how much content is not blocked? And you can see it's 45%. And this is a lot. I think we will discuss about this later. But if you have a look at the categories we have tested, you can see that for adult content, it is not so bad at all. So this means that the filter is relatively good for pornography, for sexual content, but it's not good for racism. It's not good for self-damage. It's not good for drugs and so on. So as a conclusion, I would say that adult content is relatively good filtered. We have also a low effectiveness for Web 2.0 content because it's user-generated. In the most cases, the filter cannot access this before, and you need a real-time filter, and so it is not so good filtered. And all filter work well with English language content, but work not so good with other language content. So we propose to talk about the tools not as a solution, because the tools are not a solution for parents, and not a solution for government. You cannot say, let's have a filter and the problem is done. So it's always a tool to support parents. We have heard that children use more and more mobile devices. They use more and more the internet in a content that can parents not monitor. And so we have the opportunity with these tools to support parents, but it's not a solution at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Clemens, for that presentation and for the deep insight into the results from the SIP benchmark, because at some point, I think if it's 45% of underblocking, that means 45% of the unwanted content still coming through, that's nearly random, then I would not know how to install and configure such a tool, but maybe Mila Pilau could step in, because she's coming from a provider and vendor of a parental control tool, which is Trend Micro, and I think it's not an easy situation now for you to comment on this, and maybe, I don't know whether your tool has been in the test, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more in detail. Just comment on that, what Clemens just has presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think it's a very good cue-in to what you covered in terms of the growing security threats on mobile. Let me step back a little bit and talk a little bit more on the fact that I think it is the fastest moving gadget that we all agree in the market. It is a major neutralizer that everyone definitely have access to mobile, younger ones, older ones, and the middle-aged. So I think just because of the greater accessibility of this gadget presents a greater risk to all of us, right? So speaking of just covering a little bit on the security issues that we see. I come from Trend Micro, which is a global company that we've looked into security solutions for a lot of the things, and I think mobile is one of the biggest challenge that we do have at the moment. We are actually seeing from the first time that we saw the first mobile security threat, that was actually 10 years ago. And for those who are using Nokia Symbian, you can definitely nod your head and say that most of the threats that we see in the past were pretty much more on advertising, malvertisement as we call it. Today we're seeing the 10th year of this mobile threats. We have at least up to present 2.7 million mobile applications that are sitting on mostly on Android platform that are qualified as high risk and malicious, meaning this is how much we are exposed as consumers and users of mobile. And think about 2.7 million, and as we said earlier in the previous panelists, there is no age differentiator when it comes to usage. So just think about that even our children are exposed to these 2.7 million threats every day. When we look at these threats, 80% of them are more focusing on really the bad of the bad applications, meaning to say they come here to disrupt, to disengage our online usage. 20% we call them high risk. What is concerning is that from this 2.7 million, we see a lot that are catering mostly from, I think our moderator talked about, unwanted content. In the traditional world of PC and laptop, we call them malvertisement. So this is an area that is a huge threat on the mobile environment. The other percentage, about 20%, is mostly going around, 40% is mostly working around premium SMS, which means you guys are receiving messages that seems to be catering to your lifestyle, to your need, but you're always wondering, why am I getting it? Who gave my number, right? So no wonder. This doesn't really is, when it comes to severity of security, this may not be on the top list. What concerns us the most as a security practitioner is 20% of these threats are data or information stealing. They are mostly spying tools. There are things that are set up in our mobile that functions as a way to harvest information, critical information that sits in our mobile. So bottom line is our kids are exposed to this. There is no differentiator that only the adults get it. The kids are definitely subjected to this. So the point is, how can we design, as our colleague mentioned, how can we design controls and tools to do this, right? And I guess my challenge this morning is that two things. One is we need to change the mindset. We always believe that that smallest gadget doesn't have to have a security. And I think the numbers at 2.7 is alarming enough to say that it requires equivalent security. And the second is we're actually facing a mobile community. When it comes to children, they are already crossed the chasm where they are huge mobile users. But remember, there is still a huge number of incoming generation that have not yet touched smartphones, but the point is, how can we influence both? The existing users of this mobile who are exposed to a lot of security threats, but at the same time, the incoming generation, how can we leverage what we've learned and pass it on to them? Thank you.
Thank you, Mila, for that statement. I think there will be some questions going to you as well when we come to the discussion. But last but not least, I would welcome Marco Pancini, who is our co-host, and thank you for your patience waiting so long to speak as a panelist. I think you will have to tell us something what Google is doing also in this area of safeguarding children and other people as well.
Thank you, Jutta, for the invitation. For who doesn't know me, I'm Marco Pancini from the Brussels policy team of Google, and actually it was great to learn and listen from all the different panelists and understand much better the status of the debate on child safety, family safety, and mobile. I would like to start to say that we fully understand that the job of the parents is not an easy job. Most of us are parents, also at Google. Our engineers and our leaders are parents, and they know how it's difficult to deal with parenting and the real world and the online world as additional complexities. This is why I think that we have done a lot of progress in terms of making easier to control the experience for family on our platforms, in particularly on Android and mobile. In two ways. First, in general terms, for what concerns the whole Android environment, so the safety control in Android now are much easier to install and much easier to assess for parents. At the same time, one important point for us in our Android ecosystem, Google Play, is we made a lot of effort in order to make sure that all these shady applications are actually easy to detect and easy to be taken down. We also made, thanks to the work with the Commission, good progress in making sure that any unclear offer, which is hiding behind the concept of free, is not actually representing increased cost for families. And very recently, the Commission acknowledged that our efforts in this direction, in order to make the in-apps purchase more fair and clear, is going in the right direction. On top of that, we also made a huge investment in Chrome, in terms of making Chrome more family safety, create a different experience in Chrome. So the goal here is not to, with the risk that we have seen before, create just filters or tools that can impede the access to a specific content. The goal is really to create tools that make possible for families to have a shared experience when they are online. For example, on Chrome, thanks to a new product that we launched, it's possible to create a profile that is shared between the children and the parents, and the parents can decide what kind of site, or at least the site that the children can access, or can decide to provide them full access to the internet, because I believe that, answering to your question, what is the right age to be online free, again in brackets, is it's the same question that sometimes parents are making themselves: when is the right age to give the key of the house to their children? So there is no one solution fits all. This is why we provide us more than a solution based on age, a solution based on what the parents really want to do. So the goal is to empower parents. Again, having a shared experience, talking about, because that's a very important point, talking about also possible issues that can arise from the experience online. That's not the end of the story. I think there are a lot of progress that can be done in the context of YouTube, for example, and in the context of Chrome, with particular regard with Chrome the natural evolution of Chrome is becoming an operating system, so in the whole Chrome ecosystem. And I can tell you that we are very focused on that, and we are working very hard in order to, we fully understand all the challenges that were described today, and we are working very hard in order to tackle them. But again, as you said, mobile is the new frontier. Everything is going to be mobile. Mobile is going to be the way for us to access to the online experience, and so it's very important to keep this focus, this interest on the topic, and any feedback on the use of our tools, or even if the feedback is that we didn't know that you had tools in order to make safer the experience on Android, it's very important for us.
Thank you, Marco, for this industry perspective and for describing us what you're doing. Clemens, could you click once more on the... So yes, these are the 4 points that we wanted to discuss with you, and I think that it's easy to start with what we appreciate from the situation right now, what you value the best. I think I would like to give the floor to Luca and Leonard again, because you you had it in your statement saying what you appreciate, that it's communication and having access to the huge resources of information. And what do you think you would also appreciate on that situation, that parents can control but they must not control? Can you... So just start with what you appreciate on being online and maybe on being not controlled by your parents.
Maybe it's the freedom to go to every website I want, what is very important for me, because when I realize this website is not doesn't have any good contents for me, or I don't need them, it's the wrong issue or something like this, I can change because I know where the dangers are and what sites I want to take a look at. But this freedom has two sides, and I don't think you should 100% say it's good, because we are old enough to say this is a website which has good contents and this is a bad one, but for younger generations it's maybe not that easy.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to add something, Luca? Or?
Yeah. Okay. I think freedom in the internet is very important for us, especially in our age. But as Leonard said, the younger generations have their problem with choosing the right contents for them. And I think, if just to remember what you said, sorry, I forgot your name, is how you can, what are children doing with bad parents, in brackets. So I think in our school we have the median partner. Maybe you heard about it. It's a group of people in our age are talking to the new people in our schools. Thank you. And I think this is one of the most efficient ways to teach them, to brief them, to prepare them for the internet. That young people are talking to them and explain them what is good and what not, because not everybody is talking to his parents.
Marco, is it right that what Chrome provides, it could also be used by peers? So youth could supervise or help other young users to become more knowledgeable and more acquainted?
Indeed, so this is why I was speaking about family safety and more in general supervised profile. So without going into the details, but a supervised profile is a profile that is is shared and evaluated in terms of the behavior that this profile has by a peer. That can be a teacher, can be older brother, can be a parent, can be grandparents, and again, is very flexible, and really the goal is to have a shared experience. So is not controlling, is actually the person that is using a supervised profile knows that the profile is shared, so the experience is shared. And so it's also a matter of trust, for sure. Without the trust element between the different actors involved in the activities, it's impossible to have a debate.
So I will ask Max. If it's consensual, then it's in line with the privacy you have been promoting. If there is a consensus about this shared experience on the internet, you would say so?
I think so, yes, I agree. I also have to say that what is private, or what is regarded as within acceptable norms of privacy, was very much dependent on where you are. So some societies, for example, value privacy a little more than other societies and would want their children to have more privacy than in other societies. So it's hard to draw a sort of harmonized standard across the world. But within a specific society, yes, life becomes a lot easier if there's a consensus. Yes, I agree.
So maybe Claudia, could you comment on what the children you have been interviewing in your study, what they appreciated most on the internet, and did they talk about feeling endangered, or is identity theft that was mentioned, the private data, a real concern of the young people? And which age have they been, the ones you've been talking to in the interviews?
Yeah, we conducted interviews with children from 6 to 17. Yeah, and the older ones mentioned topics of privacy problems or identity theft, or also bullying, for example. But they also mentioned that, yeah, they want to talk about their problems with their parents, that they want to have, they want to see their parents as a partner, who are able to help them in a problematic situation. But on the other hand, I realized that the older adolescents, like these guys here, have been very reflective regarding their online use, and as you said, they seem to be able to deal with most of the risks they get in touch online. But the younger ones need definitely help or support by parents, teachers, peers, and others.
Julia, I think this counts also for the most vulnerable young people you've been talking about, and who could be their guide. Do they also have peers who could step in when the parents could not fulfill that task, or do you see any responsibility, for example, in social work?
Thank you, Jutta, for this question. Concerning vulnerable people, what we have observed during the last 2 years of our research, they use a lot, they are present online in social media more often than the others actually, and they play and they use social games a lot. So this can give us ideas, of course, of what they do online, or maybe which kind of tools we need to develop in order to have a particular approach, I would say, to the awareness raising. But also, I think it's also the question of definitely of empowerment. And when we speak about, I completely agree with the comment which was made by the lady that we need to empower also parents. Maybe this is the issue, and social, of course, practitioners who work with this particular kind of children, vulnerable children. And to answer your question, what we have observed during our social research is that they're quite close to their brothers or sisters. So this was not observed with regard to their parents, but brothers and sisters.
I now give the floor to my colleague Johanna, who has a comment from a remote participant. Please, Johanna.
Can you?
Now it's working.
Okay. Is this? Amelia's commenting, Amelia Goa from Impact. What would be key in building an intelligent risk management approach is to identify each group's strength, recognizing that the rights of a child also extend to the online platform, that young people are good innovators, and combining all the elements to have an engaged approach. I think parents and educators are at an advantage to help young people develop resilience while interacting online because they have more experience in the world. Coupled with the right technical experience, they are able to impart the general skills needed to translate the same wisdom offline to online concepts. Young people are also in a good position to help each other due to peer-to-peer support that we see happening from time to time. The voice of the children and young people in these conversations is crucial to identifying the potential risks and possible solutions as seen from their perspective.
Thank you. It was more a statement than a question, but I think it was really into our question about appreciating and valuing the best of what is, because it was focused on the strengths of young people or on the strengths of all groups. And if I got it right, it also called the strengths of the parents, that they have some experience in the real world which helps them to judge what is best for their children, but also the young people's strengths to cope with the risks as well. So do we have any other comments from the floor or questions maybe? Yes, can we give the mic? Yes. And can you please identify yourself before you're speaking? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mandy, and I just have a comment answering a couple of people actually, and specifically for Luca and Lemot. We did some work in Georgia and asked youth what they felt would be successful for them if they encountered a problem. And they felt that they could go to their peers rather than their parents and teachers. So they developed these youth moderators. So they wanted.
I think it's a little bit technical. Marco, could you?
Can you please clarify exactly, because it's more about the tools, or it's more about the general, what should be the general policy in order to give a better experience for children online, a safer experience for children online?
Like they are using mini phones. The writings are very small, and the children are focusing more on that one. That affect their eyes also.
Okay. No, so I don't have an answer for this. I'm sorry.
I think I've been dealing with promoting internet access to the whole society for more than 15 years, and we've always been confronted that there also might be health risks when using these tools. But in the end, I would say with the new developments, especially when you have a touch screen, for example, where you can enlarge the fonts and you can read, and it's so convenient to use that, and it's even accessible for not well-sighted people, so for handicapped people. So I don't think that we are going into a future where it's less healthy to use these devices. I think that we have more and more innovation that make it easier to use, more usability, and so I don't think they do damage to the health of the children as well as to any other person in the world. I think we will summarize now because we are nearly at the end of our session, and I would like to invite all the panelists to have a look on the 4 questions that we had for our discussion, and maybe you can focus on envisioning what might be and also on innovating. And with only 2 sentences, what do you envision will happen within the next 3 to 5 years? And what should be innovated that it makes it more comfortable and more safe to use the internet on mobile devices for children and youth? maybe we start now with Julia on my right side, and then we continue with the whole panel. Just 2 sentences.
Okay. What I was saying, I think it's really the question when we speak about the risk management as well, about the empowerment and the development of innovative tools using the appropriate data. So I would encourage the research and specifically using different types of ages, to adapt the research on different type of children, of ages of children, and different, of course, groups as vulnerable group, for example. And I would say, and to answer actually your question maybe a bit, and as a suggestion, I would definitely think that we have a need to develop the national strategies, child online protection strategies, and to include empowerment question and risk management question, and to have different pillars in it, in order to have an appropriate approach at national level. Thank you.
Mila, it's your turn.
I think on the question of what we envision, definitely our envision is, no matter how ambitious it is, it's a really world safe for us to exchange a lot of our digital communication and information. And if there's one thing that we can innovate really is how we can rebuild the trust and confidence on that little gadget, and really enable a way that can protect, no matter it is a 3-year-old, 5-year-old kid, to even adults as us. Thank you.
I like to answer this question from a technical view, and I think we have to be more honest to talk about technical solution, and to say what can the solution do and what can they not do. And this is my wish for the future, to be more honest and not to say we have a solution and this is not a solution.
From our point of view, as I say, this is a shared responsibility, family safety. This means investment from our side on building tools that can really empower families to have a safe experience online and a shared experience online.
Thank you, Marco. And Abhilash?
I agree, and I think the goal which we need to work towards is to make our kids smarter, make them resilient, rather than shielding them from the internet. As technology advances, they'll have more and more access to the internet and mobile gadgets. And I think legislation is not the solution, but the law should step in where necessary to ensure that the relevant stakeholders do their bit to ensure child safety.
Thank you. I just got the information that we have a remote comment for the final round, so we take that and then I hand over to the young guys.
Okay, so this is from Carla from ITU, and no? Now? Okay. Carla from ITU is asking me to read the following. First, educate parents on how to manage concerns relating to internet usage, including spam, data theft, and inappropriate contact such as bullying and grooming, and describe what actions parents can take and how they can raise concerns on inappropriate use. Second, set up mechanisms and educate parents to become involved in their children's ICT activities, particularly those of younger children, for example, providing parents with the ability to review children's privacy settings and with information on age verification. Third, collaborate with educators to build parents' abilities to support and speak with their children about being responsible digital citizens and ICT users. And lastly, based on the local context, provide materials for use in schools and homes to educate and enhance children's use of information and communication technologies and help children develop critical thinking that enables them to behave safely and responsibly when using ICT services.
Thank you for that statement from Carla from ITU, and then I give the floor to Leonard and Luca again.
For us, it would be a solution to create a group of youth, like we have it at our school, who are trained by professionals to educate and speak with the new children at the school, because they can react to the personal situation of every child a different way than an adult can do that. And so the dialogue is more personal, and it's more easier to react on every specific situation and to speak with them and help them dealing with their situation.
And we think that parents should start to realize that a total control is an illusion, and it's also no need. There's no need for 100% control, because I think younger children do need some protection in the internet, but if the children grow older, they need more freedom, more and more, so they can find their own limits in the internet. And then the role of the parents should be a partner in the background who says, we trust in what you're doing.
Thank you. So, Claudia, it's up to you to have the last statement.
I think in the next years we have to keep an eye on the very young children, because we see that also the very young and also toddlers are beginning to use the mobiles and the tablets of their parents, and so I think they will begin to use the internet very early as well. And we have to empower the children and the parents to handle risks, of course, but I think we shouldn't forget the opportunities the internet have, and we have to empower parents and children as well to use the opportunities as well. And I think finally we have to improve the dialogue between children and adults, but also between children, adults, internet service providers, and to share the responsibility of children in online safety.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all my panelists for sharing their thoughts with us and for driving the discussion, and thank you to the audience. To my conclusion, I see many people I've not yet seen in child online protection sessions during this IGF and also during the last year's IGF, so I hope that we have contributed to raise some more awareness of the challenges, but also of the opportunities that mobile usage, a mobile environment can provide to the young generation, and that control is one part, but as it was said by Luca, we do not need 100% control. We need guidance for the young people, we need education, but we need also empowerment so they can do their steps in the online world on their own. And thank you so much for being here. We will be here for the next 2 days. We will be ready to answer your questions if anything comes up to you. And thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Hello? Hi, Danny. Hello? Can you turn it up? Thank you. Hello, Daniel. If you can, I'm going to unmute you, and if you can hear me, then please talk so that we can do a test. Thank you very much. Speakers. I want the speakers. Hello?